Episode 7, The History of New York Avenue. April 23, 2023.
Hey guys, are you woke? You've been hearing this word a lot lately, right? It shows up in hashtags, hashtag stay woke, which is usually accompanied with hashtag proud feminist, and people get really intense when they talk about being woke. What does it even mean? Also, it sounds like a grammatical mistake, na? Shouldn't it be hashtag stay awake? Well, that's kind of the point. Being woke basically means being awake. Being awake to the experiences and problems that other people face, especially people from different backgrounds. Being woke means being awake to how lucky you are, how privileged you are. Being woke means being awake to the fact that sometimes, even when you are woke, you can screw up, like Aziz Ansari. And so, you better listen to other people when they tell you, you might be wrong. When you're woke, you never ever hear of sexual assault and think, what time was it? Where was she? What was she wearing? Was she drinking? When you're woke, you don't assume that just because you have never had trouble with the landlords and your friends from the Northeast have, it's their fault. When you're woke, you can understand why a rape joke or a racist joke is not funny, even when it makes you laugh. When you're woke, you know that it's not just no means no, it's also yes means yes. When you're woke, you realize that just because you don't need to walk on the road doesn't mean that people don't walk places in this country. When you are woke, you know that the reason you don't recognize caste surnames is because you are lucky you never needed to. Not because caste discrimination is not a problem. When you're woke, you know that men must cry and women can make more money than their husbands. And pussy isn't an insult because hello, have you ever seen a childbirth video? Woke, you don't say something is gay when you don't like it. And you understand that just because someone is gay doesn't mean that they're hitting on you or are less of a man. When you're woke, you're awake, you're alive, and you are paying attention.
There's a fragrance that's here today and they call it Charlie. A different fragrance that thinks your way, yeah, they call it Charlie. Kinda young, kinda now, Charlie. Kinda free, kinda wild. Kinda free, kinda wild. Kinda free, kinda wild. Charlie. Kinda fragrance that's gonna stay and it's here now. Charlie.
Charlie by Revlon, a most original fragrance.
Today on Something Came from Baltimore, we have another episode of Kinda Free, Kinda Wow, a conversation with Laurie Greene. And we are at that halfway point. You can binge this thing and get ahead of the game. My name is Tom Gouker from Something Came from Baltimore. We're doing something else a little different. Something Came from Baltimore is a jazz, blues, and R&B podcast and radio show. And we will get back to that right after this limited edition series. Songs are by Bobby Short. Let's listen to the conversation. It's already in progress.
Yeah. I don't know anything about podcasting, so
Yeah,
whatever you're doing is a mystery.
yeah, it's a very big commitment, and I think that during the COVID time period, people were like, "Hey, let's have a podcast," and that's where the boom hit, and then it declined like right afterwards because people was like, "Oh, I can't keep this up." Just the idea of just trying to find content and then the time to edit it, promote it, and all that stuff. It's a lot.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, there is a possibility that this will be my last year for a while. I may take a break. It's 6 going on 7 years, and I was like, let me see what it's like without doing this. Let me see what else is out there. Like I realized, I went through all our questions and realized I haven't asked you one question, which is fine. It's a little better that way.
Just means we're having a good conversation, Tom.
Yeah. Okay. So what? Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to talk about was how did you become? How did you get married and have 3 kids? Maybe you did get married. How did you have 3 kids and then became a lesbian? I think that we started that whole story and then we veered off real quickly.
All right. I sort of hate talking about myself, but I'll make an exception partway.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's weird. I'm one of these people, I did an interview for a radio station or a television station, I think it was, when I just came out with Drag Queens and Beauty Queens. And often when I'm going to do these interviews, I'll sort of, I'll just look up the station to see who their audience is and, what their show is like and what kind of questions they might ask me, just to sort of prepare myself to, give the best interview for that particular audience. And I noticed in listening to their other shows that the first thing they did was ask the person to talk about themselves and their lives. And I thought, how am I going to get out of this? And I had this whole strategy for how I was going to sort of push aside the question about my whole life. But that aside, I have always been a queer person. I was in high school. I had relationships with women when I was, young, in my early 20s. None of them panned out into anything that I would call permanent or a serious relationship. My first girlfriend ever, who I ever had a crush on, who had a boyfriend, and then we sort of had a thing, but, she's still with the same guy. And I always think back, we're still friends now, and I always think back on that. Like, why are you still with this guy? But I decided I wanted to have kids, and I love kids. And right now I'd really like to have grandchildren if any of my children are listening to this. But I had a relationship with a guy that I met in art school in my early 20s, and we ended up having 2 children. And then that ended, and I moved to Southern New Jersey, and I met somebody at work who I love still to this day very dearly. He's one of my best friends, and we decided to get married. Mostly it was for health insurance. I kid you not, because he had great health insurance and I had nothing in my current job situation at the university. And it allowed me to have health insurance for my kids. And then we had a child. And so, we're not together anymore, but I just saw him yesterday for dinner because 2 of my kids are down, and, we're great friends. So I guess it's funny, I have to tell you a story that sort of illustrates the, challenge of understanding me in my life. So I was out at an event called Arteriors here in Atlantic City, and it's just the local arts, organization takes over a building and sort of redoes it, and all these different artists in the city collaborate, sort of create this artistic space. And this baby daddy I'm talking about, the last one, my kids call him Joey because his name is Joe, and they call it sort of like Daddy Joe, even though they might not actually be his child biologically. He's the father to all my kids. Great guy. And he was there with my oldest son, who is not his, but they're very, very close. And I saw one of my friends there, a acquaintance friend from the community, and he said, "Laurie, hey," he said, "I just ran into your son, and his dad." And I said, "Oh yeah, my son Nathan's here, but that's not his dad." And he sort of looked at me funny, and I said, "It's me, Mark. Don't hurt yourself. Just don't try to think too hard about it, because it gets a little bit complicated." But I love Joe very much. He's an amazing father to my children. He's an amazing friend to me. But we're not romantic partners. And so I live in my house and he lives in his, and, we've shared the parenting of these children all these years. And I didn't plan it this way, but I can't recommend enough parenting with somebody whose principal concern is the children and not your relationship is a pretty cool thing to do. And it turns out a lot easier for me than parenting with also the concerns of a relationship. And especially when I see the kind of animosity that unfortunately sometimes accompanies divorce and things like that, I say to people all the time, it's great. You just get somebody to co-parent with you that you're not having a romantic relationship with, and everything is fine. It's easier. I did that unintentionally, but it's how it worked out, because it was really important to me to have kids. And I love kids, and it's the best thing I ever did was have kids. And now they're adults. My kids my older ones are pushing 40, so they're actually adults now. And it's really fun. I tell people all the time who have kids, because they always say, oh, they're little and they grow up so fast. I'm like, no one tells you the best part of having kids is when they're adults and you get to realize you don't even know them. Like, they're these independent people with like their own friends and interests. And it's so cool to know them as adults. To me, this is like my favorite part of the whole thing.
See, I would say it would be I never listened to you, but you were right when you said this. And I think that part is the best part, where you give advice for the 30 years and they don't listen to you. And all of a sudden they're like, you're right. It just,
yeah, I don't know. I got so lucky because I was not a particularly good child or easy child to raise. And unfortunately, my parents died when they were young, and I didn't get a chance to know them as like a real adult and apologize for everything, like you've said. But my kids were so easy. I literally don't know why, because I deserved back. I never had a single problem with any of them. And they always listened to what I said. At least they pretended to. I never had any sort of, I got very lucky. Let's put it that way. Very, very lucky.
The one I wrote down that, like, you got married for healthcare. Now that happened before you're not the first person to do it, but now a lot of people, are looking for benefits are very important.
Absolutely. And I mean, more than that, I needed benefits for my 2 kids. So, and it worked out great. It really did. I mean, we've had some of our issues with each other, but they've always been minor, Yeah. And again, I can't tell you what a wonderful human being he is, because everything is about those kids. It doesn't matter whether they're his biologically or not.
Living in South Jersey and then leaving and coming back, whatever, I always said that you sacrifice an intimate relationship. It's funny because, this is kind of almost leading into your book. When I was really young and just coming out, we would go to Atlantic City after 12 o'clock. The bars would shut down at 2. We'd run to Atlantic City and bang. There was this amazing party that was all night long. And I was like, wow, this is like this is a whole different world that I'm not used to. And it's fun. And so when I moved there, it was all gone. I don't think there was even a gay bar when I moved there. And I was talking to guys that I met, and they said, well, they were from San Diego, and they were getting ready to leave. They were like, this isn't what we thought it would be like, the Atlantic City area. So they said we did potlucks, and that seemed to bring people together in a good way. Excuse me. And so I went up it. I thought, oh, let's do these Be Visibles, and let's see what we get and how it works. And it began. But when it comes to like intimate relationships, I didn't find anyone there that was going to happen. And it's a sacrifice for living in that area, as opposed to if you were already partnered and you come into the area and you were seasoned and you guys weren't angsty, and you had an opportunity of really having a really relaxing, wonderful relationship, because there are so many pros and cons about that area. But a con is definitely the relationships that, like, the intimacy that you can have in that area.
Yeah, well, I mean, might be a city, but it's a small town.
Yes.
I think that's
Everyone
what you're saying. Everybody knows everybody, or they know of, they're once removed. They know of you if they don't know you. And yeah, it's a little fishbowl, and so I hear what you're saying. It's, if you don't have a partner, it can be a very tough place to meet somebody. Honestly, I don't even look around here anymore, because I know everybody,
Yes.
and, that's not necessarily going to happen. We can always be surprised though, right? We keep putting ourselves out there. But, yeah, it's a small town, and you've got the good of a small town and you've got the downsides of that, and one of the downsides is the dating pool, if you want to summarize it like that. And it's also, we're more likely to get on each other's nerves. Small little feuds get blown out of proportion sometimes in small town, relationships and politics, and people have histories. They don't easily forget them. It's, it's those little things that can be challenging. And the other side of it is, when push comes to shove, people usually care for each other, because they know each other, they have that same history. It's an interesting place. I mean, when New York Avenue was, the bustling neighborhood that never slept, that was a particular moment in time that it's a shame it happened when it did, because the economic engine here in the city would never have recognized the gay community for that, for being an economic engine in the area when everything else here was going downhill. They were looking for a way to revitalize the community. And instead of looking for what they already had, which was mega successful, which was New York Avenue and the surrounds, they brought in casinos, and that led to knocking down everything in the neighborhood. Ultimately, the destruction of the neighborhood. It all started with the desire for the casinos, and the snowball that happened after that was sort of the result of the casino economy taking over the tourism industry in Atlantic City. And people will argue about this, oh, well, we got all these jobs, from the casinos, and they have their points that, well taken. But the gay community here, they were basically a casualty of that casino development. And, I and some other people, there's a number of us who have been trying to fight to bring that back. It's an uphill battle, one, because the culture in the city has already decided that, oh, well, nothing's ever going to happen here again. There's some of that resistance. But also, there are new interests on New York Avenue. There's now the corporation called the Orange Loop that wants to redevelop and has been well redeveloping that area. But it's much more sort of like hipster, young folk oriented now, rather than it is oriented toward the LGBT community. So that's why for me it was so personally rewarding, felt very important to be able to dedicate last year. Part of what AC Pride, our nonprofit, did in the city last year was to dedicate a bronze plaque commemorating the history of New York Avenue right at New York Avenue and the boardwalk. And that sort of visibility and restorative history, that commemoration is very important, because we don't know what's going to happen to that street, whether our history will be lost there or whether it might come back, whether we might get some gay life back on that historical street. So that I think that kind of a recognition is extremely important. And I'm glad we were able to do that along with rededicate the gay beach at Park Place, which used to at the same period of time be a hustling and bustling gay beach right in front of the Claridge, right? Because it looked like a penis. That's why the guys used to go there, because that's what the Claridge Hotel looked like. So it's these, we have to remember how strong the community here used to be and how vibrant. And at the same time, we know you can't go backwards, but it'd be nice if some of that vibrancy came back in the future.
What was the casino that looked like a penis?
No, the Claridge Hotel, right at Park Place, right?
Wasn't there one that wasn't
right
there wasn't there the Playboy one? Was there a Playboy one?
Yeah, there was a Playboy one.
Wasn't that shaped like a penis?
It might have been. I don't remember, but that's the Claridge Hotel is still there, and it still has that sort of
tower thing.
Oh no, there was the top. Yeah.
Playboy one was a total penis, like it was a real penis.
Yeah. Yeah, I only have vague memories of that because I'm not a casino person. Like I don't gamble, and I do go in sometimes for events and things, but I don't frequent the casinos,
No,
so.
no, I don't either. Well, I mean, I work there, but I don't gamble either. But it's what's there right now. So when did you move to that area?
Well, I've been here since, I'm going to say 1985 or 86. I'm from Philly originally. I moved down to New Orleans for a bit, to go to graduate school for about 7 years. And when I moved back to this area, it was about 1986 or 85. And I moved actually into the Atlantic City region. I believed it was about in 1990. Like I moved permanently down into this area in 1990. But I did come to New York Avenue during its heyday as a young person. I don't remember all of it, but I do remember some very poignant moments. Partying all night. And, in some of the bars and going out for breakfast at some of the restaurants that were open all night and just, seeing the drag queens walk down the street. I think that was probably the most visual memory I have as a young person coming here, because even though we had a gay scene, obviously in Philadelphia, we didn't have drag queens walking down the street.
Yeah.
That's stuck in my mind about New York Avenue and Snake Alley.
And you went to art school first, and then you went to?
I went to the Pennsylvania Academy, for 2 years.
What kind of art were you?
That was just studio art. I did painting and drawing, mostly in charcoal and pastel, but mostly I was an oil painter. And I haven't done that in a while. Although another thing that I did during COVID, like I took my old sketchbook out again and, cause how bored we were, and just started going, I'm going to draw again, and I got into it for a while. I did some drawing. And then again, after I had to go back to work, I sort of put down my charcoal, but I'm always threatening to do it, always threatening to pick up a paintbrush again.
Yeah. It'd be great to just have one room dedicated to art.
Thinking about it.
Yeah. The Basquiat kind of, room where you can just go crazy and don't have to worry about where the paint splatter goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have that room in my house. I have a back room. It's just that right now somebody's living in it. But I keep saying as soon as they're able to leave, I'm going to turn that into my studio again. I also have a tap dance floor in there, like one of those, floors that you put down so you don't ruin your floor.
Uh-huh.
At one point, I was teaching myself how to tap dance. That's out of my do something I suck at, one thing every year. 1 year it was tap dancing. So I got myself a little yard by yard floor that I put together, and it goes on top of my floor, and I tap dance on there occasionally.
I like that. Will Smith and his Jada, once a year, they pick a religion per year and study it to the fullest. I was like, wow, like, they're into, all these religions, and then these people have such a amazing, relationship, and they're raising their children differently. And then the slap came and went, maybe they're just as fucked up as everyone else.
Again, like gods of men, right?
It changed my mind completely. I'm like, shut that red table down. I think you're sharing too much now. Like I remember Atlantic City as just this Xanadu of fun. I mean, I don't know how we all decided to fit like 8 people into a car from Philly and drive at 2:00 in the morning. And whoever drove, I never drove because I was probably never ready to do it. But to get there, and spill out of the car and then, run around the city all night long. It was amazing. And it was definitely something that was etched in my mind about how great that city was, because I was having a wonderful time. When I bought my house, I somehow thought, oh, this is continuing somehow. This is a part of my past, and then I'm going to continue somehow having this amazing experience. And then when I got there, I was like, wait a minute, what happened here? It was like between the city just falling apart and not being supported, and all the buildings and the streets.
It was like bombed down. The whole block was bombed down, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it still feels that. I mean, not that street now, but it feels like even in a city, like sometimes I'll drive through it because I go up there often, and I'm like, it's still not. There's still something wrong. There's still something wrong for that city, and it's real obvious. And the contrast between Atlantic City and Ventnor, or of Ocean City, New Jersey, is staggering. It's like wealth versus poverty, or wealth versus every human problem whatsoever is in Atlantic City. Pleasantville becomes like the neighboring town becomes like an oasis compared to Atlantic City.
It's funny. I thought you might compare it to Baltimore because you're there. And I think that there are some similarities that, the way that Baltimore was revived, with the Inner Harbor Project and some other things that they've done there that I think to some success. I think Atlantic City could learn from some of that, again, Baltimore's a bit bigger than Atlantic City, and that helps because we do have a politics of personality here in the city, and so it's hard to change things when our politics are very personal, and we're going to keep electing the same people for the same reasons that have to do with loyalties rather than abilities, or ideas for transforming the city and revitalizing it. That's just my personal opinion, but I do think this place has so much potential. I mean, we have a beach, the most famous boardwalk in the world, it's just so much to say for that.
It's a boardwalk. It's monopoly. So what I always said about the politics, that if you don't have a nickname for your middle name, like, Laurie Animal Greene, or Laurie Speedy Green, or something like that, you're not going to get elected. You need that middle, like that nickname.
Yeah, and that nickname says that people know you.
Yeah.
Right? And it's always been like that here.
It's weird. We did Jeffrey Rosenberg and some others. We were the first time I was there, we were trying to come up with a revitalization program for the city. And I just said, I don't understand why we just don't go complete adult and at that point say, recreational drugs is available and prostitution's available and what else was there? Like nudity is available during the summer. And I said, I think that,
like, do a Vegas.
But do a Vegas where everything's very, very adult oriented. I said, I don't really understand why you're bringing kids. Like, this has to be kid friendly when it's gambling, and there are other boardwalks that cater exclusively to kids. So I'm not really sure where that combination is, where it's necessary.
Jeff's always, had ideas and been really, wanting to implement something to sort of revive the LGBT community in the city. And I know, like, right now he's talked about for years putting in like a gay resort. And he's probably talked to you about this time in the city where, sort of like the old Grand Central used to be, on New York Avenue, John Schultz and Gary Hill's place, or I guess it might have just been John's place at that point, where you have like a whole self-contained resort, a hotel, clubs, cabarets, swimming pool, like everything in there, so that we could attract gay tourism. And he's tried to get the city to sort of jump behind this and fund this for probably a decade now,
more than that.
Yeah. And, well, maybe, yeah, I know I've heard about it for at least that long. And I don't know that it's a bad idea. I just think that it might be a lot to bite off at this point, considering the state of the city. And so I know I was talking to him and saying, why don't you just start with like a gay bar? Like let's just start small, maybe a shared space even where it's a gay bar 4 nights a week or whatever, half the week, and something else the other half, and grow it from there. Because I don't know if at this point something that big could be, you have to have the people here that want to access it before you can build something that large. And I just don't know that we have that sort of gay tourism here anymore. So I feel like it's a better idea to grow the gay tourism, through marketing and create a narrative for gay tourism for this city that's appealing, and then start investing in building on that narrative, and once and hopefully that will develop into a situation where some dream like Jeff's can come true, because it's a good idea.
It's a great idea. It's just, I think, I told him, I said, I think you're 25 years late. When I was doing Be Visible, I said to him, I think you can't move gay commerce forward if the people who live there are not supportive. Like if you have a fracture, like Asbury Park would be a good example, where the neighboring gay community is very pro Asbury Park. The gay community is positive about it. The community's likes them there, and they see the value of having gay people, and they're fixing up all these beautiful.
They revitalized that city.
They
Asbury was in the dumps,
Yeah, but there was a positive that was attached, and it's not here in Atlantic City. I think when the casinos don't which is your major, doesn't support the gay community, and that's not the difference between having like a drag queen show. It means it's gay to make money as opposed to the community itself. So they're not supportive. They haven't been, but they were there. They will do gayish events if it will generate some cash.
I do want to say, just because we're having this conversation, and I don't want to be remiss, that the Hard Rock has sponsored Pride for the last 2 years. So last year and this year, the 2 years that AC Pride has run Pride in Atlantic City, a Pride Week, that the Hard Rock has sponsored both financially. They've contributed to the sponsorship as well as providing some events, and space for events for the nonprofit and for the community. So I just want to shout out to because they're the only ones that have offered that. And there have been others that have said, oh yeah, we are. And when they've been asked, there's been crickets, for a number of years.
There was I applaud Hard Rock for doing that. I know that they want Atlantic City to be successful. They've said it out loud. We want to do whatever it takes to make the city successful. If you remember, the first out in AC was created with Caesars, and it was a whole marketing program, and it was really pretty glamorous, and it was poorly attended, and it was basically a bomb. And at the last minute, they contacted me, and they're like, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, you didn't connect the local scene to come along with you." And I said, "I know it sounds weird, but you're doing this event, has nothing to do with the people that live in this area." And I said, they just want to feel a part of it. You can run the event, but somehow they're the ones that's going to cheerlead it and say, hey, there's something really great here, and contact their friends in Philly or whatever. I said that if they had nothing but negative things to say about the whole setup, and or they just didn't feel like they were a part of the participation. I don't really know what that link is. I said, but I think that has a lot to do with the success of that program.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, I'll give an example. I don't know if I should name the casino. I'll say another casino.
Borgata?
No, I mean, Borgata had a great out in Borgata program too. that for years that they then stopped. Really, it's sort of dead now. But no, I guess I'll say who it is. It's the ocean. I don't know if you know Michael Cook, but he frequently does events for out in New Jersey or for New Jersey Pride or some other New Jersey Pride organization. Well, he'll do it out of the ocean because they have a Pride division there. But the only time they ever contact us in the community is to support it.
Yeah.
When we ask for the same support back, there has literally been silence for 3 years. And I think that you're absolutely spot on, that all they need to do to get the support of the community is reach out to the community and give them the same kind of support. It's quite simple.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to be a thing that is naturally easy for the big corporation like the casinos to do. And I do think it has to do with the bureaucracy. I don't think it has to do with individuals that don't care. I've talked to a lot of really caring and similar thinking individuals, at least to myself, about these issues. And I know they're in there. They're in the casinos. It's just to do things in the context of the bureaucracy is difficult, I believe.
I worked at the Hilton, so I came up with the idea. All the event space was empty. There was all the restaurants were empty, all the hotel rooms were empty, and I said, "Hey, why not have a bear weekend? Why you have everything here that would cultivate an amazing bear weekend?" I said, "It's Chicago." It's very successful there. It's great in LA. It's in Texas. There's a whole bunch of them. I said, why can't we look at that as a possibility? You have potentially anywhere from like 2,000 new guests, coming in just to celebrate for the weekend. And they walk away with a great experience about Atlantic City, and then they're available. I said, well, how about, I came up with the idea of a pink pass, where it's like you get a fake credit card and you sign up for anything that is gay oriented, and the emails and texts come to you as anything in Atlantic City that you might be really of interest to you. I was coming up with a lot of things.
I love that. That's a great idea. Pink pass.
Yeah, you can take it.
I might steal that, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah. So
seriously, good idea.
Yeah, I'm an idea man. You know how it is. That's why I said I dipped my finger in activism or toe in activism. But, when it came to the ideas, I was like, I don't know why people who visit that wouldn't want to be really tuned into what gay friendly events are, so they can at least be aware. I find that most people just want to know, even if they're not going to ever go to it, they just want to feel like they're a part of it, and that they were.
Well, it tells you it's welcoming. It tells you it's a welcoming place for LGBTQ tourists,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think Larry Sieg, now that he's running, Meet AC, I think that, or Visit AC, they're changing it now. I think that he's doing a good job, starting to get a page that's for LGBTQ specific for the city's website, so that there is a list of the LGBTQ friendly events. It's not complete, but because people have to submit them, but they are being listed on the city's website as well as on the Meet AC website. And so I think that can go somewhere, but I love this idea of a pink pass where you sign up and you actually get mailings about all the LGBTQ events in Atlantic City, like, what's going on queer this year, in AC. It's a great idea, and I might try to suggest it to somebody.
Yeah, enjoy it. Well, that's where I said you could actually get discounts within the casinos.
Yeah.
They show their pink pass to the events, or they get advance, like if Kathy Griffin comes, that they get advance ticket access to a show, something like that.
Great idea.
Yeah.
And you could also accumulate points on your pink pass. Like the more things you go to, you could get, AC Pride swag or
just discounts that
swag. Yeah. Earn your hat, earn your AC queer hat, with the rainbow on it for going to 10 events. there's always creative ways to do this. And again, speaking as somebody who's worked in this area a bit, it all depends on getting enough people to help in getting a project like this going, because it's not a one person can't suggest it project. It's got to be a number of people that buy in and assist in getting a project like that moving. But, where there's a will, there's a way. And I never think that it's over in terms of reviving the community here. And it's the excitement for the community as well.
All right, we're at 1 minute left, so we're going to go to the next one.
All right, I'll see you on the other side again.
Okay. And now, let's listen to Bobby Short live at the Carlisle. I happen to like New York.
I happen to like New York. I happen to like this town. I like the city air, I like to drink of it. The more I know New York, the more I think of it. I like the sight and the sound and even the stink of it. I happen to like New York. I like to go to Battery Park and watch those liners booming in. I often ask myself, why should it be they should come so far from across the sea? I suppose it's because they all agree with me. They happen to like New York. On Sunday afternoon, I took a trip across to Hackensack, but when I gave Hackensack the once over, I took the next train back. I happen to like this bird. I happen to like this town. And when I have to give the world my last farewell and the undertaker starts to ring my funeral bell, I don't want to go to heaven, don't want to go to hell. I happen to like New York. I happen to love New York.
Episode 7 is over. Episode 8, They Play Country Music, is up next. You can binge, Just check out the show notes. The episode is over.